Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome again to our Mental Health Tuesday. Today being the 1st of February 2022. My name is Mohammed Ali Machausa. I'll be your moderator. I will be assisted by my colleagues from Samba Sports. We have Nuri, we have Mwanaisha, and we have Abigail. We are also supported by a Greenstream Network. We have members here, and also we have our partners, Diplomats for Health, Edwin Misheka and his team. They are also here. We are doing this because we understand that recently in the last few months or years, cases of mental health issues and also suicides and homicides have been rampant. And as a people, we chose to create this space so that we are able to speak and understand what's going on, and also find capacities to be able to help ourselves and also to help the people around us. So welcome. We will have a short prayer and then we move on. Let's believe and pray. Almighty God, we come to you, asking of you of this space. We thank you for the glory of life. We thank you for the gift of health and for the gift of this meeting. We welcome you to this conversation because we know with you in our midst, everything will be all right. By the end of this call, we will glorify your name because there's nobody else that we can go to make everything possible than you. We glorify your name. We pray and believe in your name. Amen. So today we have a special guest, Mary. We will allow her to introduce herself. We may not do the preliminaries because her presentation may be a bit longer and it's so engaging and we may have so many questions. So instead of doing our preliminaries, we'll go straight to Mary. Our topic today is understanding suicide prevention. So Mary will take us through a presentation and then she will open up space for question and answer. Please, you are encouraged to write down your questions. You're encouraged to raise your hands if she's done with her presentation. You can comment on the call chat and you can write as many questions as possible and hopefully she'll be able to answer all of them. Thank you very much. Mary, Karibu.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Good morning to those who are joining us from afar. I am super delighted to be here this evening, and I'm thankful that you guys found time to come and join us, even as we learn about suicide. So my name is, as said, Mary Gitau. I work for an organization called Center for Suicide Research and Intervention, and I have my colleagues here with me. Thank you guys for joining in today. So as I start, my heart pains, and I am personally shattered because of where we are as a country. We have experienced so many losses of suicide in the last couple of weeks. So before we start, allow us to take a minute of silence just to remember those who've lost their lives to suicide and to those that have survived suicide. Those are the survivors of suicide. A minute, please. Thank you. We are not in the same boat this evening, but we are in the same storm. Some of us are in what we call a super yacht, and some of us are just in a small one. So due to the sensitivity of what I'm going to talk today, and probably some of us are struggling, I want to request us, if you are in this space today and you feel overwhelmed, kindly make this call. Talk to any of us. Talk to, you could call Center for Suicide Research. You could call Samba Sport. Edwin is here. Mwanaisha is here. Feel free, but do not let the pain hurt you so much, even as we go this. I will also do my presentation of video, at least for clarity, but of course, when I'm done, I'll be back on video for us to engage further. So now allow me to share my presentation. So this is what my heart feels this evening, completely shattered. Shattered because we've lost so many innocent people to suicide in the last couple of weeks, months, days. And it's been bad, the month of January. And so for us today, I want to ask us, what are some of the commonalities that we have experienced recently, or that we have noted recently, of people who have died by suicide? What are some of those things that we probably, all of us, have kind of noticed and said, wow, I think there is a commonality to all the suicide that we are experiencing? Anyone that wants to share? Anyone? So one of the things that is so clear in the people that have been dying in the recent past is masculinity ideal. And what is masculinity ideals? This is when, like, a man wants to show something, like, I am the person, I am the man. Perfect facades. This is when we just have to show our outer face, and deep down within us, we are hurting. Perfectionism. It's very clear that we just want to be in a space of perfectionism. And when it is not working, then we are pushed to the extreme. Our social network. How is our social network doing? How are the people that we are working with? How do they treat us? How do they handle us? So perfect facades, masculinity ideals, perfectionism, where all those deaths, unfortunately, the innocent lives that have been lost, if you look back, you'll definitely notice something that is common in the recent suicides. So suicidality, it's so complex. It keeps on contradicting us. But there's a contextual phenomenon in all this. What I have learned in the last couple of weeks, and that's been written by Jennifer White, is that there's a dynamic socio-cultural context where individual vulnerabilities, relational identities, cultural and familial expectations, and normative discourses intersect in highly complex and conflicting ways. The families that we've lost, the murder-suicide that we've experienced, cultural identity, familiar expectation, my relationship cannot fail. How do I stand the world? How do I stand my peers when my relationship is broken? What do I tell people that my spouse is cheating on me? The conflicting ways, the perfection that we've all expected to have, perfect, relationship, marriage, family, job, all that. So when we can't get to that place of sustainability, then we get to a place of emotional pain. And the emotional experience of suicidality is fluid, complex, and layered. It's so dynamic. But as one person said, suicide is not a personal issue. It's a social thing. So many people play a role in somebody's suicide. So the context, what is the context that we have seen? And allow me to keep referring to what's been happening to us, because I believe that's the reason why we're having this conversation, so that we can see where are we? Why is it happening so much with us? So not being able to live up to others or one's internalized expectations. And clearly, this is what's been ailing us as a society, as a family, that we're not able to live to our own internalized expectation, because all of us, we're human beings, we have those expectations that we have set for ourselves. And even others set expectations for us. So such expectations can be about different issues, different things. Masculinity identity, how are you doing as a man? How are you doing as a woman? How is your relationship? How can you allow your marriage to fall? How can you allow A to take your wife or your girlfriend? So heterosexual identity, how are we doing? Traditional gender roles and responsibility for men and women, that men are meant to provide. They're meant to make their families look well. They're meant to ensure that their women are doing well, that children can go to school, that there's no way a child will be in hospital and they can't pay for the bills. The gender roles and responsibility, that is the responsibility of a man to provide things. And when they can't be able to meet this, they are pushed to the edge. A woman is seen as a person who's supposed to protect the family, to be there for them, to make amends for the man and for the children, to take care of the children. How can she stand falling? Not being able to take care of yourself or the significant others. And we've seen that clearly. The other day, this gentleman, unfortunately, because they couldn't pay medical bill for their children. So not being able to take care of yourself or the significant others, the people who are depending on you. So when the tension between one's own and, for example, family aims and expectations, when they are perceived as unresolvable, when we cannot resolve them, it leads to intense and difficult emotions. When what we are planning or what you have planned, what you're expecting, when we can't meet that, then we get into a place of intense and difficult emotions that eventually might become impossible to handle. That's what is happening to us, that we're getting into a space of emotions that we can't be able to handle. So recent research, which was conducted in 2018 and 2014, from the suicide law survivors, indicated that the dependent, those people who died by suicide, they depended upon recognition and to be admired. That when I get to a space where I can no longer be admired or recognized, then it becomes bad. They also say that those who tied the suicides to fear of failure. I don't want to fail. I cannot allow people to see me failing. That the harder they worked, the more responsibility they got. And this is true to us too. That the more you work hard, the more you go up the ladder, the more your family depends on you, the more responsibilities are pushed to you. We Africans, we know that so well. And this, and when you get to a place of incapable of rolling the demands on themselves, then they get hurt. That the people who died of suicide, they had to have complete control of everything. And when they couldn't get hold of control, when they couldn't control everything, then it was devastating for them. That they worked incredibly hard to maintain a perfect facade and appeared as active, helpful, and happy. And this is every time we say this. They were so happy, they were so active. I can't believe they died. What did they lack? How could they? This is what we always say about those people who've died by suicide, that all they wanted is to be recognized. All they wanted was to go up. All they wanted was to reach their dreams. that they feared failure. So the question we're asking today is why? Why are they not capable of accepting any kind of defeat or setback, or choose to take their lives rather than, accept defeat and move on like others do? Why are we in this space? And I know that's been going on in the minds of so many of us, where we look at those people who have died and we're like, why couldn't they wait? Why did they choose to end it? Why now? So our current state of looking at it, shame and humiliation are inflicted to us while we are children. That where we're growing from, where we are coming from as children or as adults now, we've come from a place where if we don't make it, then we are shamed and we are humiliated. And we've picked that up. We've grown with that. And now as adults, we don't know how to even deal with it. We can't face the world when we are going down. Unrealistic expectations. Every time when we think about those who died and they're in places of good employment, good social status, we're like, why? Because they had internalized unrealistic expectations, all others also placed to them unrealistic expectations. And when you can't meet them, then you get to a place of pain and you can't face the world anymore. We as children, again, we've grown in the place where children, especially men, were not allowed to express strong emotions. How can you express strong emotions as a man? And so they get into this space now, they're adults, life is pushing them to the extreme, and they're like, you cannot express emotions. So you're pushed to a lonely place in a dark space. Growing up again, and this is our culture. We've never learned to regulate feelings of perceived defeats. Fragile performance based on self-esteem. We wish to satisfy and impress others. And we have made it to ourselves. There's no room for failure. There's no way I am going to fail. I have to make it or make it. And this, unfortunately, is where we are. So when you look at the different lenses, small failures become of enormous significance, and especially for men. You get to a place where you are unable to regulate emotions or handle major life changes well, and small setbacks are perceived as the end of the world. Blaming themselves when they don't reach their goals. And men who are here can ascertain to that. Repeated defeats make them work harder to reach the ideal standard. It's all or nothing. It has to succeed with everything. Otherwise, it's a total failure. We keep fighting with fear of emotional rejection and of revealing vulnerability. The ACCs. Extremely important to keep a perfect facade. And the need for control. This is where we are, even as a society, even as a country, even as a world, that we have to keep struggling to make everything look as perfect as possible. That we have to be in control. I have to be in control. I have to be in control. I am the man here. I am the woman here. I have to be in charge. And when we keep experiencing repeated defeats, then we keep suffering and hurting ourselves and pushing ourselves to a place where we feel, no, we can't take it anymore. When that tension becomes extreme, then you're like, no, how do I handle this? the last few years or decades, research has always been done. And we have always been told to look at the risk factors and the warning signs. But clearly, suicide is not a jigsaw puzzle. That pick this risk factor, pick this warning sign, and you, boom, that person is now going to die. Actually, current research looks at it that most people who actually portray these risk factors and warning signs, they don't die of suicide. Because suicide is not a jigsaw puzzle. It's not. There's more that we need to learn. There's more that we need to do. There's more that we need to look at. There's more that we need to engage in, like our culture, our context. Because unfortunately, when we are pushed to the extreme, suicide becomes the only way out. It's unfortunate. So our context and how complex this is. Human beings are not mechanical machines reacting to, automatically stimuli or risk factors, but some complex, intentional, emotional, meaning-seeking, reflecting, and relational beings. That is who we are. That's how God created us, that we are relational beings. We always seek meaning. We are reflecting every time. We keep on reflecting that we are intentional. And in respective contexts, we are constantly exposed and influenced by a number of indefinite number of changing factors and events that are unique to each and every individual and unique to each and every person. That's who we are. And I'm not discrediting that we don't focus on risk factors or warning signs, but rather, can we realize that every person is an individual? And at this point, realizing that most suicides are preventable, but maybe not all, but most suicides are preventable. Why? Because we are individuals that are affected by changing factors that are unique to each and every person. And that is why, even as you look at the different people who died of suicide in the recent past, we can't clearly pick one thing. We can't. And so that's why we're saying this evening that suicide is defined as conscious and intentional act. That suicidality is something that occurs between people, not necessarily inside a person. So every time when we focus on risk factors and warning factors, we are pushed to us understanding what suicide is. Unfortunately, at this point, we look at the biomedical model, and the biomedical model focuses and says that suicide is perceived like an abnormal, deviant behavior, that this person is seeking attention, they want to satisfy something. It's pathological, there's a mental illness, there's a mental disorder. And so in this case, what happens is that we push people to seek medical help or to go to the hospital to be diagnosed, all that. Then we also have the communication theory, where suicidal behavior may be interpreted as a specific way of communicating distress when individuals find verbal communication insufficient. So this evening, just kind of allowing ourselves to even focus more on communication theory of suicide, that these people are in distress, not necessarily sick, not necessarily abnormal, that they don't have a deviant behavior. They could be, but then it's been there years. So the context understanding of suicide. Suicide act is not always a cry for help. At times, it is about wanting to take control or wanting to take charge. Remember what we mentioned about masculinity? That this man still wants to take control. For the elderly who've lost autonomy due to loss of function or role, that they've been working in these super good organizations. They were managers, they were seniors. All of a sudden, they've lost control. So at times, taking back lost control in life, it happens. When young men are unable to live to masculinity ideals, taking control to demonstrate that he was a man of action. Unfortunately, think about this young man in Tasia, or I don't know, somewhere in Embakasi, who went and took a 3-year-old. It's devastating to think the least. Why did he do that? Taking control. It is an existential choice or the only solution at times left to deal with unmanageable problems, including unbearable life circumstances, including oppression and abuse. It's a desperate protest or rebellion against even family, all societal oppression and abuse. It's a way to escape from unbearable expectations, internalized expectations that one is unable to live up to from family, from the society, or from our culture. So let's allow ourselves to see suicide from different lenses, looking at it from different perspective. That this person is not always crying for help. They may not need our help. It's about them wanting to take back control. That they could be going through oppression and abuse. That it could be a protest or rebellion. And we know of people who've died because of rebellion. So in conclusion, most suicides are preventable. Most. Please mark the word most. And allow me to speak to us who are here and are mental health professional counselors. That it is never your fault that somebody dies by suicide when you're working with them. You have done your part. That for the mental health advocates that are here, don't take it personal. Yes, suicide takes a high toll on us, but then we are not to blame. That supporting the believed people is very, very, very key. For every one person that dies of suicide, a minimum of at least 135 others are affected by suicide. Even as we're thinking about this one that has died, what about those who've been left behind? One suicide becomes a risk factor for those who've been left behind. So let's learn to also desire to help those of us who've been left behind in the workplace, in schools, in homes, and care for them. So when we say that suicide prevention is everybody's business, what we are saying is we have a role. The Samba Sports, the DF, all of us were working with the young people and knowing that some of us have been exposed to high expectations. We've been humiliated before. We do not even know how to deal with emotions. That it is our business as leaders of these CBOs to help our young people, or all of us, to know how do we deal with emotions and rejections. How do we work as a community? How do we help people to stop putting high expectations on each other or on their lives that cannot be met? How do we help each other deal with trauma, historical trauma, attachment trauma, intergenerational trauma? How do we do this? So that's why we say suicide prevention is everybody's business. Looking at suicide from a communication theory or communication perspective, that this person is not necessarily calling for help, but they want to take control. How do we teach them or teach ourselves to take control? Not necessarily in death. So finally, being an African, where we conclude and then we finalize, let's talk about responsible suicide reporting. How do we do it? So when we think about it, do you think there has been suicide contagion or copycat suicide? And what I mean is, at times we glorify the death by suicide until some of us sorry, are we okay?
Sorry, Mary, I've removed them. Just continue.
Sorry. Oh yeah, so I was saying about suicide, copycat, contagion, where we glorify so much until we kind of saying something indirectly to those of us who are also in pain. Remember, I started saying that we are not in the same boat, but we are in the same storm. All of us, we're in the same storm. We're in the storm of the pandemic, of the COVID-19 pandemic. That's the storm. But we are not in the same boat. Some of us have received the jab. Some of us have received some, difficulties because of maybe getting COVID. Some of us have been affected in one or another. So how we talk about those who've died by suicide has an effect and an impact to us. So when we are talking about suicide, and especially about, reporting, when we're choosing the story, event-driven, we should focus on event-driven, tribute-driven, support-driven, and action. When I say support, I mean when we are reporting about the death of somebody, are we calling others and saying, hey, look, we have a helpline. We can support you if you're struggling. We don't hear that happening. What action are we saying? Not necessarily calling on the psychologist and the mental health profession. What action are we doing as neighbors, as community leaders, as church leaders, as religious leaders? What action are we doing? Are we paying tribute to this person? The don'ts, the 2 S's and 2 G's, that we don't sensationalize it. We don't stigmatize. We don't say committed, because committed is a crime. And, those who've died by suicide haven't committed any crime. We don't glorify it. We don't show the good part of it. There's no good part of it. And gratuitous report, we don't do that. So when we are reporting, let's apply and reflect on: 1, have I minimized harm to those who've been affected by the suicide? Have I told the truth, yet avoided explicit details of method and location? Have I taken care in producing the story, including the tone and the language? Have I used social media responsibly? Have I avoided stereotyping and harmful content and stigmatizing stories? And have I supported help? Could be through the helpline. It could be through offering ourselves to help. So even as we do reporting, even as we talk, because I know we probably speak with the reporters, and some of us here are reporters. When we are writing down that report, or when we're writing down that story about suicide, about Nani died, and have you minimized harm? Have you considered the family that's been affected? Have you taken care of somebody else who could be struggling, who is also in the same boat? Have we done that? So it's it's just a lot that we need to do and focus on, knowing that all of us are struggling. It's the magnitude of the struggle, and that's why care for each other is very, very key. The risk factors are good to know and the warning signs, but clearly, when we ask so many of us, even who are here, they will tell you, I never saw that, I didn't see that, I didn't see that. So all of us keep saying that, yet we know these risk factors and the warning signs. So what does it really mean then? Yeah, so it's very key to to take care of each other and to help each other even grow out of that space and that state that we have been in. Kind of walking with each other in this journey, and keeping, caring for each other, and even as we are talking about suicide, am I thinking about the other person and how are they doing? So of course we have the various initiatives that are doing suicide prevention, and reach out to us, and we are happy to work with you, to to hold your hand, to just listen to how you're doing, and how you want us to hold you, because as I have said, is that there's so many things that are happening. Our society is ailing, our culture is ailing, our context is ailing, but we need to focus on individual and the community and the context of us as individuals. So thank you so much, Samba Sports Youth Agenda, for even holding this important conversation. So thank you for listening. I'll take any questions if they're there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary. Thank you very much for that long, very educative, insightful presentation. And I will open it up for question and answer. We have a few minutes to go. So Edwin Micheka had his hand up first, and then brother Dr. Mukhtar Ogle also has his hand. Edwin, are you there? Edwin is not there. So brother Mukhtar.
Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mary, for the powerful presentation. As usual, it's a pleasure to be in this space and learn new things. Today, when I was thinking about this invite, I looked at some things I saved earlier on. And I think I looked at during the recent suicide cases in Kitui and Mombasa. And one of the things that we looked at, what people think suicide prevention is. And this was on one of the websites.
Sorry, continue, Mukhtar. I am trying to find whose mic is on. Please unmute yourself when presenting.
So in one of the presentations, they said they called it the crisis prevention, the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. And then, close to what Mary has said, they have defined it what suicide prevention actually is. They said, one, it is food security. And remember, they are looking this in the context of America, especially the inner cities, where many of our brothers live. many of the lower level of the, urban slums, what we call slums here. But for us in developing countries, everyday life is a life of struggle. The pressures of life and in our ability to cope and the intensity of changes that happen. And what they said, what suicide prevention actually is that she said, 1, food security, 2, affordable housing, 3, self-awareness and training, 4, peer norm activities, 5, affordable healthcare. And of course, I say this in the context of America, and so I think some of these things are relatable. She says housing stabilization policies, community engagement activities, like what Samba Sport is doing, is an excellent platform and avenue for suicide prevention. And then, very importantly, she says destigmatizing mental illness. The shame, the labeling, the stigmatizing of our family, our people, our friends who are battling mental illness. She also says strengthening household financial security. She also talks about increasing accessibility for mental health care, like what now Samba Sport is doing, bringing on board our sister Mary to talk about her expertise. And more importantly, she mentions parenting skills and family relationship programs. And finally, family and community acceptance of individuals who are battling mental health. Now, unless we quickly learn how to control the rate of change in our personal affairs, and especially society at large, we are doomed to have a massive adaptational breakdown. That is why, clinically, from the point of neuroscience, why our people take away their life, why individuals become so vulnerable. The strength level varies. Just like the batteries of a car vary, our strength level, our mental strength, our mental resilience, the mental age that we have over the challenges that we face, which is induced by stress and depression, are unique. Many scholars have given their voices to their concern over change, the anxiety about our lack of ability to adapt, and more importantly, fearing about the future. Many of young people have finished school, they have finished university, they have finished colleges, they are at home. Mambo ya kazi ndio hiyo. Social pressures is that. Population increase is that. Available access is that. Young people want hope. They want families like me and you. They want children. They want to be responsible parents. But again, the toxic reality of the difficulty that they face becomes a very difficult challenge. I don't want Mohammed to accuse me of doing a presentation, but I have 2 quotes here. They say disruption comes, they say disaster comes with functional disruption. The disaster of suicide, the disaster of losing our loved ones, a friend, a relative, a Kenyan, is as a result of a functional disruption. The person fails to think, and anasema wachana hii maisha. That is the last act of resilience. So, what are the potential effects for us as a community of the extreme situations that we live in? The surge in depression, what is it that we can do about it? 2, what are the innovative design solutions to the rising cases of suicide and depression and distress in our community? These are hard facts we have to live with. And it is up to thinkers like Mohammed and the Samba Sport team to become a model for this country on what we can do. And I have seen, personally, I have participated, I have seen how people are ventilating in their parental dialogues. Kule mashinani, wache Kiingereza ya town, na Zoom, where villagers were expressing their feelings and they felt a sense of recognition and responsibility as parents. Number 3, what are our young people or our CBOs or NGOs working in these spaces? What innovations have they done to confront this challenge of suicide and depression so that we are better prepared. And for those who are battling depression, we can rebound with a big scale to the shocks that we face. What are the interconnected elements that make up our world as human beings, also as communities? So I will stop my English there, but I will say two things are very clinical, very significant, especially what Mary Gitau has raised. We must also have an interface of our indigenous traditional knowledge of elders, our clerics, my bishops, and my sheikhs, and clinical psychologists like Mary, for us to do a very systematic, scientific, socially driven, design thinking to fix some of these issues. Otherwise, I tell you, my friends, you are doing an excellent job, and God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brother Mukhtar Ogle. Always stuff that deserve standing ovation. We will keep saying that. Thank you very much. Maybe Mary, let's hear from David Ahenda and Maisha Kimakin, and then you may answer. We are remaining with a few minutes. David, you may take the stage. David, please unmute yourself if you are speaking. David, we can't hear you. I hope you are not struggling. You have muted yourself now. You are okay now to speak. You have unmuted yourself. Can you speak now, David? Okay, sorry. Maisha Kimakini, are you able to speak? And then we come back to David. Maisha? Maisha, am I the only one who cannot hear you? Your mic is open. Yes, David, can you speak?
Okay, I can't speak. I can't speak. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm very sorry for joining the session late, but there is something I've gotten. I was just about to ask on how effective is telling somebody that there is something that they're living for to against committing suicide. How effective is telling somebody that there is something they're living for against them committing suicide as a way of preventing suicide on an individual? That is my question, and I think it has attempted to be addressed by the previous speaker, Mr. Mukhtar.
Mukhtar, okay. So, Meru Mepata.
Thank you, Mohammed. I think let me, before I forget.
Okay.
We must appreciate confronting and preventing suicide or significantly high scale depression or stressful situation that induces helplessness will require on our part as our brother's keeper to look at building resilience. Like David has asked a very fundamental question. But building resilience and telling somebody that there is something to live for is easier said than done. It takes time for the victim to accept. But we must do some precision, targeted mentoring. And it is our responsibility, as he says, to help others improve, excel, and thrive away from the deep well of depression, which is on the brink of suicide. And you can do this. You need to establish positive relationships. You don't have to wait for people to express their suicidal tendencies. I've always said in this forum, let us show a little bit of kindness. Let us not label people. Let us step up our leadership. Mbele ya community na mbele ya Mungu, we are responsible for each other. So that we nurture the unique, special, and personal strengths of each of our community members. Even these guys who are committing suicide, is the last scale of desperation. We can reverse that. How else can we do? We need to establish a very interactive, dynamic dialogue, especially with our parents, especially with our community women leaders, to challenge the growing trend of suicide and depression. Ni mama anajua, those women in the village who are struggling to feed the family in the face of biting poverty and food insecurity, they can offer us a deeper perspective of what the situation entails and the attendant interventions that are required. So David, we cannot run away from this responsibility. We must be our brother's keeper, and we must think differently. We must think smart and save our Kenyans who are on the edge of suicide. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brother Mukhtar Ogle. And I just want to say, maybe Mary will also make this clear. Sometimes if you don't know the context and you are not that close, you have not won their trust, you may not be the person placed to say, maybe don't go because of 1 and 2. Sometimes maybe at the point that they have made a decision to take their lives, they are actually saying, if I'm gone, then these will be safer without me. And unfortunately, maybe Mary will guide us on that. Maisha Kimakini, you wanted to say something before we allow Mary?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Very well, sir.
Okay, sawa. So thank you so much, everyone, Mary, Mukhtar, and the other speakers. So as for me, I'm Abdulaziz from Diplomats in Majengo. And kidogo too, I think, Mohammed, last time you heard me when I talked about me doing this kind of awareness in Majengo, talking to men actually specifically. And I think sisi watu tumetoka mashinani, and I love using Sheng and Swahili also. I hope it's good with everyone. Sote tunajua lugha yetu ya taifa. So
okay.
One ni kwamba it's a very good thing, like sahi kila pahali everyone is anaanza kupatia attention this suicide thing, watu kujitoa uhai. And I think especially pande ya wanaume, sisi wanaume, everyone ana understand pressure ya mwanamke vile yuko, kila mtu anajua kwamba zile misemo za kuambia mama hivi mama vile, but men are the ones that unakuta si rahisi upate ile pongezi. Mwanaume anaweza pongezi kama vile ya uzazi, kwamba hata vile Mukhtar amesema hapo kwamba uliza hata wamama kule mashinani, mama wanajua. It's like yes they know, it's true they know, but also kila mzazi kama you are a very concerned parent, unajua kwamba kuna vitu ambazo mtoto wako, rafiki yako pale nyumbani anafanya nini, anapitia. And I think vile sister yetu amesema Mary kwamba suicide prevention is everyone's responsibility. It's everyone's responsibility. So I think pia sisi wenyewe kwa wenyewe pia ni kuangalia kwamba if kama ni responsibility ya kila mtu, zile early signs unafaa tuzielewe kwa uzuri, ndio pia usio unasaidia mtu pati imeshafika pale anataka kujiua, iwe pia unamsaidia pale ashaanza kuonyesha zile early signs. Unatumia time yako, maybe offer time yako kuwa pale, kuweza ku network na wasaidizi, maybe that thing from ukiwa pale chini, kwa sababu wengi wanajua wako around people that are not hawajasomea counseling, hawana services za counseling, but us from the community wenye tuko na ujuzi at least na this kind of awareness ya Samba, bro Muhammad, yenye at least mmeweza ku continuously mkiendeleza, ni kwamba tuna impactiana hapa kuweza kujua hizi vitu, na pia kupata professional kama Mary kuweza kujua mbinu moja ama mbili za kuweza kusaidia wale wenzetu pale mashinani. So it's so important kwamba tuweze kujipatia hiyo responsibility ya kwamba unaweza kuwa around someone ambaye ameshaonesha those early signs, na wewe ukaweza kuwa umeoffer time yako uweze kujipatia hiyo jukumu ya kwamba unafaa una offer time yako ya kutengeneza maongezi ama mbinu fulani ya kuweza kujua kwamba mtu kama huyu unafanya nini, unakuwa karibu na yeye aweze kufunguka ama karibu na yeye kuweza kumsaidia. So I think dada yetu ameongelea vitu ambazo ni so important na ambazo maybe ingeweza kuchambua moja baada ya ingine, ita take time, but najua kwamba hiyo moja nimeongelelea kwamba it's everyone responsibility, suicide prevention, as in we want to prevent. So preventing, it's from the signs. I think when we read the signs, na inamaanisha ni kwamba ni sote tuwe makini. I think hapo kama vile jina yangu ya nani yangu inasema maisha kimakini, ni kwamba maisha unafaa kuwa uwe, yani uishi kwa umakini. So ukiishi kwa umakini ni kwamba utakuwa na, tuseme mtaani huku tunasema kuwa na rada, yani kuwa na very attentive mind kwa kila kitu na happen around you, so that at least ule mtu ambaye anaonesha sign tofauti ya vile alionyesha jana juzi, unaweza kumuelewa na pia kumpatia time na kuweza kumsaidia. So I think tuweke sote hiyo point ya sister yetu kwamba it's everyone responsibility, but pia tunote kwamba it's so good that tutaweza kuangalia kusaidia mtu from the early signs rather than kumavoid, and then wakati ashaonesha zile loud signs ama zile nani signs za kuweza kuanza kutake action, ndio tunaanza kuruka. So that is mine, and thank you so much Mary and Mohammed. Shukran.
Thank you very much, Abdulaziz, for that addition. I think very enlightening, eye-opening. And allow me to ask Sami Lena to give his voice, and then we bring it back to you. Sami?
Thank you so much. This is Sami Lena Walting, all the way from Marsabit County. First of all, it's my pleasure to be with you guys today. To me, what Mary has brought to us about suicide issue is something which is very essential in our community level. I, as a founder of a small CBO, the Young Mentorship Community Program in Marsabit, we are facing so many challenges or cases related to suicidal cases, especially the ones being led by the issues of drug abuse and the relationship matters. For today's session, I think I want just to add something that I would like to urge Mary not to stop here, but also to allow us to do more and more trainings, so that those of us who are working in interior, who are working in the local level, can be able to gain these skills and be able to know how we can tackle suicidal cases in every manner that they might arise in youth, in adults, and generally in the society. As she said, that suicide is not one person mission, it's for us all. So my encouragement to her is to keep on conducting such kind of talks, such kind of trainings, so that we can gain more knowledge in order for us to execute our duties of securing the society, securing the life of youth, especially this hard time of the pandemic. Finally, I would like also to be able to support us, the community-based organizations which are working basically in local areas, with materials or the resources which we can be able to use in training these people or training the community on the early signs of suicide, how to prevent suicide, and also how to overcome any other challenge that we might be undergoing in society. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much, Sami, and thanks for joining all the way from Marsabit. We feel really honored. Mary, over to you. I know we have gone beyond our time, but two things I wanted to bring to your attention before you answer the rest is that a lot of people have said they wanted the slides. I see you have answered that. And then the second is those are Judy, who asked, what are these key signs? I think she may have missed. Maybe if in your response, you may iterate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stuff, so that when she goes home, she has something to carry back home. Mary?
Thank you. So so for the risk factors of suicide, which I said we may not necessarily focus on, but it's good to have an idea of what they are. So because they keep changing depending on each and every individual. Today we'll say, okay, fine, let's somebody who's withdrawn, somebody who's who's been active and all of a sudden they're withdrawn. That's a risk factor. However, not all of them that die of suicide actually withdraw. Some of them are active until the last minute. However, things to do like with substance abuse, that's a risk factor, because somebody who is in distress and then they're intoxicated, then it becomes worse. So we want to be, as a community, as neighbors, we want to watch out the people who are in distress, that they're not abusing substances, alcohol and other drugs. Loss of a job is a risk factor for suicide. Loss of a relationship is a risk factor for suicide. When somebody cannot progress academically and they want to, that's a risk factor for suicide. So those are some of them that we are with them, we witness them each and every day, and when even when at times we get people who are having thoughts of suicide, and then they come to us and you can see clearly this somebody is struggling, and we ask them, hey, I noticed lately you're not doing so well. And they'll say, no, I'm okay. So what our conversation can continue and say something like, okay, fine. When somebody loses a job, they can get in some kind of distress. I am going to be here to listen to you, and I'm going to offer a hand of help. You are helping them. You are acknowledging that that they could be in distress, so that's what happens. So yeah, because at times we find these people, I'm okay. So then you say, okay, she said she's okay, let's not go away, but let's, even when somebody is in a broken relationship, let's engage them. What does this mean to you? What does the loss mean to you? And we keep pushing, and we say, it's okay, you may not be struggling, but I know when people get to this moment of losing somebody, or losing, a spouse has left, or a significant other has left, people get into moments where they get hurt. I am here to listen to you. We can talk. Yeah. So those are some of those things. To this gentleman who talked about resources, yes, as an organization, we have resources. We support the youth, we support schools with resources, and we are happy to send you some information. We also do lots of gatekeeper training. We're inviting you in, and we also have other trainings that we conduct so that people can know, what do I do when somebody is in a crisis of suicide? What do I do to even support the suicide loss survivors? So we do that, including to the mental health profession. How do you do aftercare? How do you do postvention and all that? Yes.
Thank you very much, Mary. I know we have really gone out of our way. It's 13 minutes after 9. But Mary, I have a request. I'm sorry, I'm not asking you this in the inbox. I'm asking you aloud and clear, everyone hearing. Is it possible that we can have you again next week, and we can focus on the key, what I could say, vulnerability signs or danger signs, and then we can look at the trajectory, like where does the early signs moving into the near suicide and the actual decision, because it is said suicide has stages. When someone just contemplates, and then when they make a decision, and then when they prepare to actually take their life. So if you may agree to be our gift again next Tuesday, we'll be humbled and really honored. And then we may actually answer some of the questions that are moving towards what are the risk signs.
Sure, happy to.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you very much. So guys,
and my suggestion, Mohammed, also, my suggestion, I think as she comes, I think this is very important. It's good to have the grassroots people asking fundamental questions and challenges that they are facing, so that this does not become a conversation between our English-speaking elite. And more significantly, Those rural women who are struggling, they can even speak in their mother tongue. If Muhammad, I know you have the capacity. If they can enumerate some of the challenges they are facing, we'll have achieved the end objectives of such engagement. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Bwana Mukhtar. We have agreed with Mary that we shall have a conversation after this call, either tonight or tomorrow, because I'm sure she's tired. And we are looking at ways of reaching deeper into the prisons, into the men in uniform, into the grassroots. So this is a conversation that we've committed ourselves to take, Bwana Mukhtar. And I think God will help us. That's what I can say. So, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to say thank you very much, Mary. I know people still want a piece of you, but let's save you. Let's save you for.
It's not a one-day conversation. We have to keep going. We have to keep doing. Yeah. So let's keep doing this.
Yeah, we've been doing this for the last. This is the 24th session. We started last August, and we've been here every Tuesday. So every Tuesday that you are available, Mary, we will have you. So thank you very much, Mary, and your team. Favor is a friend of mine now. I know she invited me to give a talk one day, and she's so kind. She's already sent the slide to my email. I've seen it coming. So thank you very much, Mary and your team. Thank you very much, Diplomats for Health, Edwin and your team, for making this possible by reaching out to Mary. Thank you, Brother Mukhtar, and all your energy and your counsel. Thank you, everyone at Samba Sports Youth Agenda, for keeping it real. Let's keep on. And thank you, everybody who's made it possible, who've joined in. Those from Marsabit, from Nairobi, and wherever. Thank you, Brandy, Taylor, and Andy, Uta, for joining us. I have nothing but love for all of you, and wish you greatest of nights, and God bless you. See you next week on Tuesday.
Yes, very kindly share the slides.
Yes, we will share them.
Thank you so much too. Good night.